Analysts closely scrutinizing losses generated by Disney Plus are now wondering, too, whether the platform can maintain its early dominance. And one of the analysts, Greenfield, asked, can you win and become a massive global streaming service that is able to charge enough to create a great business if you are paring back on content? Meaning talking about the cuts that Iger is going to make to streaming services or to streaming shows, as well as theatrical releases going forward. At least things they have not already greenlit. If it's been greenlit, it's in production. If it's been shot, if they finished principal photography prior to the strike, of course, those are shows that are going to, more than likely, 99% chance, they're going to continue on because now they're going to have a content issue, and that's a sunk cost at this point. So this is stuff going forward. What are they going to greenlight next month? It's going to be less than what they greenlit 6 months ago in terms of quantity and in terms of spend. That's going to be the big thing. Where they used to maybe greenlight $200 million for a Marvel show, and they did 7 of those a year. Well, now maybe they're only going to greenlight 3 or 4 shows from Marvel onto Disney Plus, and instead of greenlighting a $200 million budget, maybe they only greenlight $150.
Well, they need to do more than that, actually, Valiant. Not to interrupt, I'm sorry.
No, go for it, Tom. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing is, we brought this up earlier with Haunted Mansion. There's no reason that movie shouldn't have been budgeted at $60-70 million and been meant for Disney Plus. That's the big problem here. This
Hocus Pocus 2, Tom.
Exactly.
Hocus Pocus 2.
And this is where I've been saying, if anything, hopefully on the earnings call, if anybody asks anything, is what is the deal here? Why are you spending $250-300 million on these Star Wars and Marvel shows when you should be able to make 5 or 10 shows for that much?
Do you know what David Zaslav could do with $200 million on Max and Discovery Plus?
And not just that. Let's be real here. That used to be the different. Here's the problem with Bob Iger's friggin' vision from the beginning, is that he had this idea that Disney Plus would be the end-all be-all for Disney. Sooner or later, the theaters were going to die out, all that kind of business. They were trying to expedite that with COVID. We all know that. We've talked about it time and time again. And here we are sitting again where they've learned the lesson that we all tried to tell them, is that you're not going to be able to make the kind of money you think you're going to be able to make without the theaters, regardless, because a streaming service is not going to make you the kind of money. Because I've pointed out before, the most you're going to get out of a customer is what the equivalent of a customer buying a Blu-ray every month would be. That is not going to cover your costs.
Right.
Now when you're somebody like Disney, when they could release 2 movies from the vault every few months and make that kind of money. Like this, they have really screwed themselves. Exactly.
And it worked.
Exactly.
Those were some of the best commercials ever. It's just hey, you missed this version.
What was it? 4 movies a year, I think it was. Every season they would release one from the vault.
Well, unless you were a Disney Members Club, right? Then we got early access, or there was one extra, or something.
They've almost destroyed that too at this point, Stephen. They've gotten to the point where it used to be, and that's why I've been a member of the movie club for years now, is because they had the exclusive ones. Here, I've got some right here next to me. That's the beauty of. Here's some great examples.
You only have 1 month to buy.
They have not done these in over a year now. They have not done any Disney exclusives. Here's 2 of them right now: Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. 2 movies that should have been just standard releases.
Yep.
They could how much the first one made.
They could have done this year, especially with their failures of the remakes, brought out the vault, bring out the classics, and done a Disney Princess box set.
The Herbie movies here.
Yeah, and they could have nailed it.
Yeah, and that always made them big money, and that's what they don't seem to understand.
I'm doing it the wrong way here.
But here's an interesting comment right here. This is the end of the article here, and I'm going to show y'all some charts. We're going to be winding it down, but stick around for this last part. I want y'all to see this, because this way, when you turn on the live show Sunday, when we start the earnings call, you'll already be ahead of the game. Okay, we try to get y'all ahead of the game on these kind of things. That's why we always do the 30 minutes before the show, but there's only so much we can do. Usually by the time we launch the show, the earnings report itself, the PDF, is public. So we try to dive into that before the actual call starts, so we kind of know what we're heading into. But in this case, look at this paragraph here that I was just reading. Analysts closely scrutinizing losses generated by Disney Plus are now wondering, too, whether the platform can maintain its early dominance. Can you win and become a massive global streaming service that is able to charge enough to create a great business if you are paring back on content? Can you really get to scale globally without heavy investment in local original content in every market you operate? Now, what's important about that is that there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, the analysts, again, at first, what do they want? Subs. How many subs you got? How many subs did you add this quarter? That's what we heard for 2 or 3 solid years, right? Not just with Disney, but with Netflix and everybody else too. HBO Max, going, on down the line. Then they said, oh, wait, suddenly we need it to be profitable. So what does Disney and other people do? They scale back. Well, we're spending too much. We need to actually turn a profit on this. Now they're turning the corner again with these analyst remarks saying, well, but if you scale back and you stop spending as much money, then how are you going to build that global footprint to scale up to get to that level of profitability, right? Meaning that the problem is they're like in a no-win situation. Streaming is literally, it's the Kobayashi Maru at this point. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But to what he's saying, there is a lot of reason in it, and that is that if Disney starts scaling back, what is going to attract the new subs? What is going to keep people spending $8, $9, $10, $11, $12 a month? What's going to keep them around when they
keeping it that I'm looking at very closely.
Well, that's what I was saying. That was about to get to what your point was a moment ago, which was 100% on the money, and it goes into this, Pro. And you're exactly right, and that is that what is going to keep them around when you start raising prices if not only are you scaling back on content, but the content that you are producing is crap.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't getting people engaged week in and week out on the Nielsen charts. Pro, what's the biggest thing Disney Plus has every week? The only thing they have that's consistent.
Let's see. Bluey.
That they don't even make. They just license it. They lease it from the company that produces the show. Nothing on Disney Plus has any lasting power. It's kind of a flash in the pan situation. Nothing is really on there driving it. It's not like old reruns of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse are sitting up in the top 10 of the Nielsen charts every week like Bluey is. Because that's all Bluey is. It's just kids consuming Bluey over and over and over again, binging it like little kids do. None of the actual Disney properties seem to have that power. The closest they got was with Encanto, but even that had a limited shelf life, after about, 6 to 8 months. It still pops up on there every now and again under the top 10 movies, but they don't have anything that they keep replenishing the coffers with to keep this roll going. Without a massive global reach on its own platform, is Disney actually hurting the value of its intellectual property by not exposing it widely enough rather than distributing films and series via other platforms? Read that again. Rather than distributing films and series via other platforms. What does that mean? It means that, they're starting to recognize the fact that maybe Disney Plus isn't the best place for some of this headline content. Maybe Disney Plus just needs to be a repository of content that Disney has had on its linear broadcast channels for years, maybe throwing some movies on there after it's been on another streaming platform for a while. Hint, hint, kind of like Universal does with Peacock. They get it for the first 4 months, and then it goes over to Amazon Prime and Netflix for the next 10 months, where those two companies, Netflix and Amazon, pay Universal billions of dollars to get those rights for those 10 months. They make bank. That's what they're talking about here, is that maybe Disney needs to go back and look at, maybe after a movie leaves the theater, maybe the best thing for it is to go to Netflix for the first 6 months. And Disney can actually generate some revenue. Pro?
Maybe if you are putting out a new streaming service and your streaming service is doing exceptionally well because it is seen as a safe babysitting service for children across the world, maybe you don't do things that put you in the headlines and make en masse the entire world view your babysitting streaming service is no longer safe for babysitting services. Just a thought on how that might go down for you. And to your point about Bluey, why is Bluey doing so well? Because parents can set Bluey up to sit there and run on loop, and it's still safe. They trust Bluey. They don't trust the service that Bluey is on.
That's it.